Yo, what is up, guys? It's Cohen back here again today with another one of these What's Next videos. Today, we're going to be talking about the Washington Wizards, but quickly, I just want to address something. I'm wearing the same shirt in a lot of these videos coming up because I'm recording them in a bulk because I'm going on a trip for about a week. That's why I'm wearing the same shirt. I'm addressing it now before I get comments about it. So, that's why you're seeing that. But when we talk about the Washington Wizards and what's next for them, there's a couple different ways we could go with it. There are really two main paths that pretty much any NBA team can go down, but especially for the Wizards, they're at a crossroads, and they have a big decision to make whether they want to keep this thing going or blow it all up. I'm kind of in the blow it all up camp, and I'll talk about why that is in a second, but I figured we should start with talking about this Wizards season as a whole, what went wrong, and ultimately what they need to do going forward if they do want to compete before we talk about if they want to blow it up, because that keeps it more consistent. So, this Wizards team made a big move in the offseason, bringing in Russell Westbrook, trading away a very long-time player for this team, a loved player for this franchise in John Wall, who had a big contract and ultimately just couldn't stay healthy. Bradley Beal needed a running mate, and between the decline and inability to stay healthy of John Wall, it wasn't going to be him anymore. So they went out, traded for Russell Westbrook, gave up a pick to get him, and here he is. Him and Bradley Beal ended up being a pretty good trade because they made the playoffs despite being pretty bad the last couple seasons, and Russell Westbrook helped elevate not only his game, but Bradley Beal's game to an all-NBA third-team player. Bradley Beal, with a great season, came in second in scoring in the entire league at age 27. Russell Westbrook proving to the league that he can still be an all-NBA level guy. Didn't get the award. Maybe he should have. We can have a discussion about that in the comments if we want to. But ultimately, he did not get that recognition despite breaking the all-time record for triple-doubles by an NBA player over the course of the season, averaging a triple-double and leading the league in assists. Russell Westbrook showed the league that he is still very valuable, and this led them, after a abysmal start to the season, to a playoff appearance, despite, around the All-Star break, there being a very small chance of that. And that huge run was fueled by Russell Westbrook and Bradley Beal. So when they got there and faced the Sixers, they didn't stand much of a chance outside of those two guys. The rest of the team really let them down. Rui Hachimura was probably the only other guy who really showed up in a big way over the course of this series. Some of their bigger guys, in Davis Bertans especially, really just didn't show up. They lost Deni Avdija, their top 10 pick last draft, to an injury, a season-ending injury earlier in the year, so he wasn't present. And ultimately, the Sixers team was just far more talented and well set up than they were, so they didn't stand a chance. And so they head into this offseason firing Scott Brooks, which was very well needed, whether they go down the rebuilding path or whether they try to keep contending and try to work towards being a successful team in the playoffs. Scott Brooks had to go. He was not doing this team any favors. He was a bad coach over the course of this season. As much as Russell Westbrook and Bradley Beal vouched for him, it was time for him to go. So I'm a fan of that decision. In hiring a coach, I think they need to hire someone who is new. I say this a lot for NBA teams. I feel like the Wizards, if you go for a rebuild, they need to bring in a new face. Maybe you bring in an established face. Maybe you bring in a Mike D'Antoni or something like that. If you want to kind of go for a more playoff contending type approach, if you decide to go down that path, maybe you go for him. Maybe you go for a Kenny Atkinson or something like that. But ultimately, I think what would fit this team best is a young, new coach with new ideas and ways to utilize their two stars in Russell Westbrook and Bradley Beal if you try to contend, and if you're trying to blow things up, a new coach to grow alongside a potential young core that you could establish by dealing some guys. Talking about the guys on this team, if they do decide to keep things together, right now the guys under contract are Russell Westbrook and Bradley Beal, who both have one season left on their contract. After that, they both have player options. Russell Westbrook, I could see opting in much more likely because that player option would make him $47 million. And unless he's going for more of a long-term contract, I think ultimately he will opt into that player option. He's not going to get paid that much in free agency, so there's not much point to him not doing that. And Bradley Beal, I think, will very likely opt out. He will be 29 when that contract or when that free agency period rolls around, and he's going to want to get it back. He's going to get especially now that he's an all-NBA player, he can get $40-50 million near from whichever team signs him. So he's probably going to opt out and try and get that back from either Washington or any other team that wants to sign him. Davis Bertans and Thomas Bryant are still under contract. Bertans was very disappointing this season. He's got to be better. And Thomas Bryant is a guy that I was really high on coming into the year. He unfortunately just suffered a season-ending injury. Hopefully he's able to return to form next year. I think he's a good fit next to Russell Westbrook and Bradley Beal. Being a stretch big, which is something they really just didn't have this season that they really could have used, especially Russell Westbrook. He loves having those stretch bigs, and he's never really had the opportunity to have one consistently. Rui Hachimura, like I said, was a big bright spot for them over the course of the season. He had a great campaign, and I think ultimately going forward, if they do decide to blow things up, he is one of their building blocks going forward, and if they try to contend, he's still going to have to be that guy. So either way, Rui is very important. Denny Avdija, I don't think was utilized very well. One of the reasons why I thought Scott Brooks should have been fired was his misutilization of a lot of guys on this roster, especially Denny Avdija. He's a guy who really, I think, needed to be involved more in the offense, and instead he was really used as a spot-up shooter. Raul Neto and Ish Smith played a lot of time in that three-guard lineup that sometimes the Wizards would run. I don't see Raul Neto or Ish Smith probably being back. Maybe Ish Smith, but I think he's going to get a deal from another team. He proved how valuable he can be as a bench piece on the Wizards, and I think some team, a higher level team, is going to offer him a deal that I don't think he passes up. And Daniel Gafford was probably the biggest surprise for this team over the course of the year. They got him at the trade deadline, dealing Mo Wagner away, and he was an instant improvement over any big man they had on the roster, except Thomas Bryant, who we didn't get to see in comparison. So I think Daniel Gafford and Thomas Bryant, whether you blow it up or keep going, is a good center tandem to have going forward, with Gafford and Bryant only being 22 and 23 years old. So that's what their roster looks like going forward. So you have a big next season. Russell Westbrook and Bradley Beal could theoretically leave after next season for nothing. And that's where you consider blowing it up, which is, to be honest, I think is the better decision. Love Russ, love Bradley Beal. I'm a big fan of both of those guys. But right now, at this point, unless you put a lot of talent around them, and I think it's going to be tough for the Wizards to get a lot of talent, maybe there's an unhappy star at some point in this offseason, and you pair maybe Davis Bertans' contract with like a Rui Hachimura and like a Denny Avdija. Maybe you put something together there and bring in a third star next to those guys, and then you try to make something happen. That's the only way I could see this team making any noise in the future, but I just don't see a way. Love Russ, love Bradley Beal, but ultimately I don't know if there's enough like assets here and enough ability for this front office with those two massive contracts and Davis Bertans making $16 million for them to build a contender around those two guys. They're both getting older. Bradley Beal is just now hitting his prime, so he's got a lot of time left. Russ is going into his age 33 season, which I think Russ is still going to be a great player. No matter how old he gets, he's still going to be productive. One of my favorite players and my favorite player of all time. So I'm biased. I just wanted to put that out there, but I think he's still going to be productive for at least a couple more seasons, so you could try and run this thing back, and I think that is what they're going to end up doing. But at the same time, Russell Westbrook's value is the highest it's going to be probably for the rest of his career right now. Russ making $44 million next year it's not a small contract to swallow at all. But at the same time, proving he was an All-NBA player this past season, some team I guarantee you is going to be willing to trade for him. Who? I don't know. I haven't done the math with contracts, but I guarantee you there's some team out there that is looking at him and thinking, maybe, why not? He's an All-NBA player, and worst case, if it doesn't work out, we've only got this year and maybe another year if he accepts his player option. And same with Bradley Beal. Bradley Beal could theoretically walk, and I know he loves Washington. I know he wants to be there, but a lot could change in one season. Maybe something happens, and all of a sudden, like a Kawhi type situation with San Antonio, where just out of the blue, everything falls apart for that relationship. And you lose Bradley Beal, who right now, if you traded him, I think you could get like 4 or 5 first-round picks for him. That's how valuable I think he is right now as a 27-year-old who came in second in the league in scoring. So many teams would kill to have a guy like Bradley Beal, a great shooter, a great creator for himself, just an all-around great player, an all-NBA guy on their roster. Teams would give up a lot for that. So I think you should consider it. Maybe you could deal Davis Bertans to another team. You might have to attach a pick, or worst case, you just hold on to him and see if he rehabilitates his trade value. You get young pieces for Westbrook and Beal. You let Denny Avdija, you let Rui Hachimura, you let Thomas Bryant, you let Daniel Gafford. You let these guys spread their wings and see what happens. and you probably end up being the worst team in the NBA next season. You go into the next couple years look like they're going to be loaded in the draft, and if you trade Westbrook and Beal, you're going to have a ton of assets, like not a Thunder level assets, but maybe like a Pelicans level assets or something like that. You'll find something in the middle there. And I think that sets you up pretty well going forward. You're going to be really bad for a couple seasons, but ultimately it might have to be done. You don't want to lose Westbrook and Beal for nothing, and I'm afraid that if they do go through this next season, there is a chance they could. I also think there's a good chance that the two re-sign, but ultimately, are they going to be able to build a contender with those two contracts on the books? And with like a guy like Bertans still under a lot of money, I don't know. I don't know how it works. Maybe this is just the inner voice in my head saying that I want to see Westbrook win a ring, and I'm not sure if it's possible in Washington. That makes me think that they should blow things up. Let me know in the comment section below what you think, but I think what's next for the Wizards is that big decision. I do think they've already made their decision. I think they are going to try and be competitive again next season, but crazier things have happened in the NBA before. Way, way crazier things than the Wizards blowing it up, and I think they need to take a good, long, hard look at potentially blowing it up. If you're a Wizards fan, I'm sorry. I know this probably isn't the video you wanted to see. You want to see me be more optimistic, and I do think you have great young pieces in Rui, Deni Avdija, and Thomas Bryant, Daniel Gafford. But this might be the time to blow it up. You had a great season. Those two are great players. Maybe it's time to see what you can get for them. Worst case, you just call around, see what maybe you could get. You don't like the offers, screw it. Why not run it back? We'll see what happens. But that being said, I appreciate you guys watching this video. Let me know what you think the Wizards should do. Should they blow it up? Should they keep trying to be competitive? Who should they hire as coach as well? Did you like any of the names I suggested? Bring in a Becky Hammon. I think Becky Hammon would be a great decision for this team. Whether they rebuild or go to contend, I think she's going to be a great coach. And that is a name I have seen circulating. They should bring her in. So let me know what you think about the coaching situation. Should they blow it up? Should they keep it going? Whatever. I appreciate you guys watching this video. I'll see you guys later. Real One Say Back.